I watched four disturbing movies, and here are my thoughts. So I watched these films in this specific order: Vile, The Coffee Table, Angst, and then Red Rooms. And I'm gonna rank from what I think the least disturbing is to the most disturbing. And then after that, I will rank it from my least favorite film to my favorite. Okay, the film that I found the least disturbing might be controversial because I feel like a lot of people find this film disturbing. I found it boring, and that is Angst. A killer is released from prison and breaks into a remote home to kill a woman, her handicapped son, and her pretty daughter. So I really disliked this film. Like when I watched it, I remember just being like bored from like the start to the end. I don't know, maybe something up with me, but I mean, I did not like it might have been something up with me, but I did not like this film. When I watched it, it was just boring and like it's just a lot of walking. I think it is interesting because you get like this killer's perspective and you get to hear his thoughts, which interesting. But the rest of the film, I mean, a couple things happen and then it's over, and I just found it boring. I do understand why people could find this film disturbing. I also understand why people could find it interesting. The next place on my disturbing list is the film File. A group of people awaken to find themselves prisoners in a mysterious house with no means of escape. They are each outfitted with electronic devices attached to the base of their skulls. Chemical that the brain produces when in pain are collected by the devices, and when it collects a predetermined amount, the door will be opened in order to escape. They must hurt themselves and each other. So I believe, I don't know how long ago, but I watched like a recap on this film, so I knew some of the things that were going to happen, like specifically something towards the end, which when I watched I wasn't a big fan of, but whatever. Um, but I thought this film had, if I remember right, a pretty good range of characters. We have a bunch of different types of characters, and I think that for a film that is based on just torture, it isn't very gory. I will say I think a lot of people dislike that fact, but I think there was enough screaming and sounds of what's happening of the people that it was still like decently effective. I do think it should have been gorier. I think the gore would have helped, but I mean the screams and sounds of the people were enough. And I think the music they played during some of these scenes, if you watch the film, you would know, was an interesting choice, and I don't quite know how I feel about it. On to the next place on disturbing list. Second place is Red Rooms, the high-profile case of a serial killer, Ludovic Chilveler. I probably butchered that. Has just gone to trial, and Kelly Ann is obsessed. When reality blurs with her morbid fantasies, she goes down a dark path to seek the final piece of the case's puzzle. I found this film really interesting, and I will admit I was quite confused during it. When I finished the film, I watched a video on it, and when I was watching the film, I read a synopsis. I didn't fully understand what's going on. I still don't think I fully understand, and I thought the film was a bit disturbing. I will say it didn't disturb me that much. There was a couple things that disturbed me, but it wasn't like very disturbing, especially compared to my first place. But there were a couple of scenes that I did find a bit disturbing, and there was actually little to no gore. There was some blood though, I will say, but it wasn't very bloody, and it did feel kind of long. But I don't think that was really a bad thing. I was enjoying it. I was enjoying it for the most part. And the most disturbing film I watched, and when I say disturbing, I mean none of these other films, like all these other films, I could rewatch. I'd be fine. This one is gonna be hard probably for me to rewatch, and that is The Coffee Table. Jesus and Maria are a couple going through a difficult time in their relationship. Nevertheless, they have just become parents. To shape their new life, they decide to buy a new coffee table, a decision that will change their existence. This film is a film you really just. I can't really get into it without spoiling it, but I do have a couple things that I do want to mention that I would say are spoiler free, and I will warn you if you think about watching this film and you're sensitive to stuff I can't really say. I would just recommend looking at trigger warnings. I mean, I already knew what happened. I watched this film one time halfway through. I don't know exactly why I didn't like finish it. This film is very disturbing, and you feel so much dread when watching this film. It felt like actual torture when I was watching it. Like I had to take breaks if I can remember correctly because it was just so much, and it wasn't very gory though. Like there was a little bit of maybe gore, or there was some blood, but it's really disturbing. It's the most disturbing film I think I've ever seen, and it was really well done. I will say that, and the acting was really good. So it's one of these situations where It's done really well, but it's so disturbing that yeah, I can't even get into it. Trigger warnings for this film. If you decide to watch it without trigger warnings, good luck. Now I'm going to tell you what I think the worst film was to the best. And some of them I can't really rank. Well, one, The Coffee Table. I just couldn't rank it because it's effective. It's not a bad film, but I don't know how to rank it because it was something. And I didn't give Inks a rating on my Letterbox account, but I know where to put it in the rankings. And so the worst film was Angst. I found it really boring. Second place would go to Viral. Well, it's not technically probably a good film. I enjoyed it. I give like 3.5 stars, so I enjoyed it. And the best film I watched was Red Rooms. Really interesting story, really well done. A little confusing, but I did enjoy it. And as I said, yeah, I didn't know how to rate The Coffee Table. Okay, that's my ranking. As always, these are my opinions. Bye.